Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey there, Rulers, DMO73 here. Before we jump into it, just want to let you know that Odyssey Games is now taking pre-orders on Epic of the Dragon Lord, the first set of Saga Cluster. There is a link down below in the description to take you right to it, and if you use the code ALUMNI, you get free shipping on all orders of 2 boxes or more. So, if you haven't had a chance to pick it up yet, go ahead and check it out down below and get yourself pre-ordered. It'll be arriving to you on release day, so super excited to be able to help them with that. But, for right now, we have this really fun match between Paul Clute and his Gil Lapis aggro list versus a very fun bet it all on black Dark Alice list. The whole idea is to abuse Dark Gaming Hall and Shadow X, get yourself to a place where your opponent has to gamble it all, and if they lose, the game is over. You'll see exactly what I mean when we get to it, but with that, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. And with Dark Alice being on the draw, it's actually pretty in a good spot, as it is with most of these Regalia deck matchups. First turn, we see a Black Moonstone, and we're getting that Blazer out. Pretty solid opening card for Paul to be able to put out there, especially if he can jam the World Ender next turn to turn it on. Dark Alice is going to go ahead and get that Unknown Mother Goose using the Energize, get our crystals here. Now, we could have chosen to choose to get the dark crystals twice, go up to 4, but ultimately this deck actually does use the light crystals a little bit, so it's better for us to kind of choose to do some of both, especially since Unknown Mother Goose is going to generate us another darkness crystal by itself at the end of the turn anyway. Down comes that World Ender, so now we're going to see exactly what Paul's going to do with it. Most likely going to limit break that Blazer, potentially. Do a second limit break or getting a card. We're going to see, yep, limit break Blazer here and limit break into Sylvia. Very much in line with the aggro package. He doesn't look to have a Sylvia in hand, so maybe this is just setting up for later, but it is still worth it to get it right now. And then choose to do Lapis Darkstorm to kind of minimize the risks of hitting something, or me being able to kind of combo out by ripping the cards out of my hand. We see a Nightmare Knight discarded. And then for the choice, we're going to go ahead and get rid of another Unknown Mother Goose. Not super doing us a ton right now anyway. Paul choosing to swing in for 12 here. We're going to go ahead and just comfortably take that, go down to 28. Drawing for turn, and then before the upkeep here, we're going to go ahead and use 1 pair, and we're going to be able to awaken it by showing that we have 2 copies of Shadow X in hand, so we get 4 light and 4 darkness crystals. It is a lot of value off of just 1 card, quickly going up to 7 and 6, and then we can still use other Mother Goose to Flash and Mage Jack, getting us 2 more light crystals. Suddenly we can gain 1600 life there, all before the upkeep if we need to. The crystal generation in this deck is very, very fast. It's designed to be that way so that we're almost always forcing our opponent to gamble away their life on the Dark Alice flip turn. So we're just going to go ahead and call stone and pass there, go up to 8 darkness crystals, and feel very, very comfortable. This means that at this point in time, a Shadow X, which we know we have in hand, immediately puts us up to being at 10 crystals. And so then we just need to make sure we still have Shadow X's available, get Gambling Hall, and then we can try and see if we can push through for lethal that way. Paul choosing to swing in for 12. We're going to go ahead and flash in one of those Shadow X's. This gets us to 10 crystals, and then we'll go to block. It has first strike, so we don't get to do the Bane damage, but it does prevent us from getting the 12 damage. A little bit of a misplay, forgetting the fact that it has first strike. We could have just as easily blocked with the, or taken the 12 and then gained 12, 16 back with the Mage Jack there. Soul Hunt coming in here, we're going to flash in another Shadow X just so that we can try to keep it alive and not have to worry about having it discarded from hand. That doesn't really super help because Soul Hunt is going to trigger Blazer, which is then going to shoot the Shadow X. So a little bit of a sequencing on the part of my side sets us up to kind of like now we don't have any Shadow X's to be able to burn through for lethal. We got to get a little bit creative in how we're going to find our way to that gambling situation. Another Blazer comes down here. At that point in time, we pass the turn. Callstone pass. Paul looks like he has Lapis Darkstorm Soul Hunt. Swings in for 12. We're going to go ahead and use Schrodinger's Cry and burn a Light Crystal here to RFG it, get us into a draw card. This is what I'm talking about. The deck does sometimes use those Light Crystals. So Paul's in a position where he could Judgment here if he feels comfortable. It's probably the best call. He could grab a Sylvia and push in aggression that way. He could choose to grab a Lenneth and destroy my Dark Alice, Regalia. There's lots of different things he can do here. Ultimately, the best move is to probably put out the Gil Lapis. It's not limit broken, which is a little bit unfortunate because he won't be able to use the God Art, and the God Art would be really, really bad in this situation because it would set up to be able to make sure that Shadow X's couldn't ever enter the field because there'd just be this -4/-4 on the board. But because he chose to limit break Sylvia earlier instead of Gil Lapis, that's not going to be something to worry about. So looking through his deck here, deciding if he wants to grab, you see, looks at that Lenneth, looks at the Sylvia, ultimately does decide to go with the Sylvia just to put in more pressure. I think I probably would have chosen the Lenneth here. Gets you another limit break, gets the Regalia off board, and suddenly puts you way ahead on Will, especially now that I'm at 1 card in hand. But I think maybe his head was just in get bodies out or get Sylvia out to be able to push in pressure. Does do that Lapis Darkstorm just to rip the last card out of my hand. It is the Dealer, which is not super great. We need that to get Casino. Thankfully, we top deck the other Dealer. So Dealer gets us Gambling Hall, and then we can do Judgment on Dark Alice here, which lets us grab any Fairy Tale out of our deck, and Shadow X is a Fairy Tale. And if you notice, we are at 13 Darkness Crystals, going to go up to 14 at the end of this. So we're easily at a position to be able to gamble away. We actually go up to 13, 15, and then 16 at the end of turn. So if we could get 6 damage in from somewhere earlier, we actually wouldn't even need to gamble. You can get up to 20 Darkness Crystals as a backup strat, but sometimes it's easier just to, take the risk based on the matchup, which is exactly what we're doing. So we're waiting until his turn before he draws, while he's still completely tapped out. We're going to use Soul Dealer's effect to look at the top 2 cards of our deck, put one on top of the other. This is to kind of mind game your opponent into trying to guess wrong when you use Gambling Hall's effect. So I banish all my crystals as cost, and then I tell him to guess even or odd. If he's right, from the top card of my deck, I lose all my crystals. If he's wrong, I double all my crystals. And so at this point with the Shadow X on the board, if he's wrong, I go up to almost 30 Darkness Crystals, 60 damage. That's the game. So he was incorrect, guessed evens, we hit it odd, and so we push in to game 2. So game 2 here, choosing to take the draw. So that he has access to that Energize for World Ender on the beginning turn. Which makes sense, especially, the idea of the combo deck being the turn 1, with the fact of Gil Lapis being able to go potentially turn 1 Energize World Ender into Lapis Darkstorm could be very, very powerful for him. Thankfully, we have the Yggdrasil here, which is at least going to get us kind of caught up. You see he does have the World Ender in hand there. So Yggdrasil getting us our Unknown Mother Goose. We are going to see that Energize into World Ender here. Once again, choosing to limit break Sylvia and Blazer. Knowing this matchup, I think it might have been better to do Blazer and Gil Lapis. He knows it's going to take me a bit of time, and potentially he can set up a board state where just my combo can't happen because of the -4/-4. ultimately deciding not to do that here, potentially because he's on the draw, so it's going to take him quite a few turns to be able to get there, and he knows that I'm going to be able to Judgment before him, might be the reason why we chose not to do it there. So Unknown Mother Goose comes down, thanks to Yggdrasil, still leaving us one will open. Generating those Darkness Crystals, go up to 3 and 2. Paul's in an interesting spot here. He could try to rip my hand apart. He can definitely get aggressive with these Blazers that they're limit broken, so they're 12/12s each. We'll take the first one. We'll go down to 28. Second one's going to try to swing through here. We're once again going to try to use that Schrodinger's Cry to be able to get it RFG'd. We'll respond with a Black Moon Ray, which gives, because it's limit broken, can give it Barrier and Eternal, but we're going to respond to that with a Royal Straight Flush to make sure we kill it. So a little bit of a 2 for 2 here. We're burning that crystal for the awakening of the Schrodinger there. Shouldn't have done it when we cast the card, but does get us into another card there, which is pretty nice. All in all, though, does leave us pretty open. See, he has that Sylvia in his hand, which he could easily get to play and then burn out that Yggdrasil while dealing 10 damage to face, taking me down to 28. So we're, next turn we're on Dark Alice flip turn, which is really, really good for the deck. We're going to be at least 4 Darkness Crystals, 5 Darkness Crystals, so we need some other form of crystal generation here at some point. Just to get it to the 10 so that we're set. The idea is that if you have a Shadow X in hand, then you just get Dealer. If you have Dealer in hand or Gambling Hall in hand, then you just get Shadow X. So like you don't really need too much off of the flip from Dark Alice. You can kind of get versatile there. Playing the Unknown Mother Goose, we're going to generate some more crystals here, float some extra resources, and then use the other Unknown Mother Goose to be able to play Save the Queen. It is a fairy tale, so it can be cast using those cards. This is really helpful against the aggro deck because now we're putting a -4/-4 on his side of the board, which means that we can survive the Sylvia swing because it's only going to burn the Save the Queen for 6 as opposed to the 10. And it's also really nice because then the Save the Queen could then block the Blazer and still make all of that work. So essentially Save the Queen just by itself makes it so that I'm only going to be taking 6 damage in the air potentially. And then we play the Yggdrasil here. The whole purpose of playing the Yggdrasil is to get the other Mother Goose to, again, help us be able to do crystal generation or potentially set up for more 1 pairs that we might have in our hand, as well as being able to, if we see a Soul Hunt, we can sacrifice it without having to lose the Save the Queen. Sylvia swing in. We're going to go ahead and burn the Save the Queen for 6. We feel pretty comfortable taking the 6 damage. See, there's those Soul Hunts there, so we made the right decision to play that Yggdrasil. Swings with the Blazer. And in response to the swing, we're going to go ahead and use King of Kings effect to banish the Darkness Crystal and pump up the Save the Queen +4/+4. So she goes to being a 16/16, who's taken 6 damage. So she's 16/10, and Blazer's an 8/8. So we actually do get to bypass the first strike from the Blazer and kill it, which is very, very helpful. And there was nothing instant speed there for him to be able to save it. Soul Hunt's not going to help him there. So Lapis Darkstorm comes down here. Hits the Unknown Mother Goose, and then we'll go ahead and discard another Unknown Mother Goose there. Like I said, we were setting up to potentially hit a 1 pair off the top to be able to suddenly be at 10 crystals very, very quickly. Still at 7, which is still pretty good. Soul Hunt's going to come down here. Paul taking a big risk here, choosing to discard his whole hand, get rid of the Sylvia, to just rip my hand apart too, saying, hey, I'm going to tell you that, like, you're in pretty bad shape. Unfortunately, though, once again, we top deck the Soul Dealer. So Soul Dealer can be cast off of the Unknown Mother Goose, which is great. So that's going to get us Gambling Hall, and then we can use Dark Alice's Flip to get us the Shadow X, which then in turn sets us up to be able to try to gamble everything away next turn. Because at the end of the turn, Shadow X will get us 2, put us up to 9, and then the end of the turn, Unknown Mother Goose gets us our 10th. So we're in a spot to be able to immediately gamble it all away. We don't even really need to, because we're also going to be able to swing 12. At this point, we didn't need those extra crystals because we're already going to be hitting him for down to 28. So we need a grand total of 14 crystals. So we could just like wait, but ultimately, he's tapped out. So the idea of we're in a pretty good spot here regardless. So before he calls stone or draws a card for the turn while he can do nothing to us, we might as well take the risk. Ultimately choosing not to do that right now, particularly because we know the matchup here. We know there's a potential flip for Gil Lapis, so it's kind of like we're in control a little bit. So we also choosing to use an unawakened, an unlimited broken Gil Lapis, End of the World. This is another one of those situations where, if he had chosen to do Gil Lapis Judgment or Gil Lapis Limit Break instead of the Sylvia, this would have been, significantly better of a card, but ultimately kind of based on the aggro plan, that just didn't work out. And again, this is a situation where like he knew Dark Alice was going to flip before Gil Lapis, right? So that there's, you want to push in that aggression with Sylvia rather than Gil Lapis. It's a toss up. So he could swing in here with the Sylvia, just try to shoot the Shadow X, but he knows at that point in time I'm just going to go ahead and do the shenanigans with Shadow X anyway. So he's going to pass turn, and then in the end phase, we're going to go ahead and say, okay, cool. Let's try to set up what our next draw is going to be here, and then also, gamble it all away as we go into my turn so that we're in a little bit better position. So we're forcing him to pick between evens or odds. We're betting all of our crystals away here. If it resolves, we win. If it's not, we have to start over. Thankfully, the card that is on top is a Save the Queen, a second Save the Queen, which is really, really good in this scenario. He did guess it right, so we have to start all over. But again, we've been kind of the aggressor here, so it works out pretty well in our favor. So we can pay 4, play this second Save the Queen, which sets up a -8 to his board, which is very, very good for us. Suddenly Placer's a 4/4, Sylvia's a 2/2. A lot of stuff's going to go on here. We can go ahead and swing him with Dark Alice for 12. He decides not to block it, so we take him down to 16 and go back up to 24, which feels great. Save the Queen gets to swing in here for 12. It's a pretty much mandatory block. Does choose to take it and go down to 4, which is interesting. Soul Dealer's going to go ahead and go in. Going to block it with the Blazer. Shadow X is going to go ahead and try to push through for lethal. Say, okay, you have to have it anyway. And then at the end of the turn, we can still gamble it away because we get a Darkness Crystal, and we can just do it again here. We're not terribly concerned about what he might be playing, so we're going to go ahead and, before he draws, bet the 1 crystal away, tell him even or odds, and see if he gets it. If he loses, I only need 2 crystals to kill him, and so we're seeing if it pays off. He gets it incorrect, we get it 2 crystals, and that is the game. So there's the match. Hope you guys liked it. This was a super fun Dark Alice list to play. The deck profiles for both lists will be up later this week. Again, check out that link below to get your pre-orders from Odyssey Games for Saga Cluster. And until next time, this is TMO73 saying class dismissed.